Well, I guess this is it, huh? My name is Joe Barrington. I'm the PR director for Emerald City Comic Con, and I want to tell you guys, thank you for coming. This is, we never take it as a given that anyone's going to show up any year. And for you guys to pack the house like this and come and support us, we're doing it again next year if you guys want to come back. That said, this is going to be a very hard act to follow. Any Star Trek fans out there? Any X-Men fans out there? My personal favorite, any Dune fans out there? All right. Let's conclude Emerald City Comic Con with Mr. Patrick Stewart panel. But I got that wrong. That's the Yank in me. It's Sir Patrick Stewart. Please welcome your guest moderator, Mr. Marty Riemer from the Mountain 103.7 FM.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks, everyone, for coming out. I was just chatting with Sir Patrick back there, and he says this is the biggest one he's ever been to. So, couple quick ground rules here. No flash photography, no video recording, and we're serious about the no flash photography. They'll actually ask you to leave if they see the pops going off. So just keep that in mind. I guess we can't stop any kind of photography because we don't know what you're doing. In fact, that is kind of weird that we don't know what you're doing in there. Also, we'll have a short conversation out here, just he and I, and then we will open up to questions from the audience. So, in fact, you will get a chance to ask questions. If I'm not mistaken, I have light shining into my eyes right now, but there should be 2 microphones set up that you can line up behind if you have a question for Sir Patrick Stewart. And without further hesitation, let me introduce the man that is kind of capping off this 2013 Emerald City Comic Con. Please welcome to the stage, Sir Patrick Stewart.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's great. Thank you. Thank you. What a wonderful, wonderful reception. I really appreciate that. It is so good. It feels so good to be back here in Canada. Really?
Very close, very close.
It took so long to get here on Friday, I thought I must at least be in Canada. But how could it be Canada? You're alive. Listen, no. I've got to do a lot of work in Canada this year. and those immigration people, they're tough. They don't like jokes about Canadians. And the fact is, some of my best friends are Canadian. William Shatner, one of the world's best-known Canadians, Barack Obama. No? I mean, half of America don't think he's American. How crazy is that? I know there are none of you here who think that way, because this is the Pacific Northwest. Yeah. Civilization. And with all respect to Canadians, it gets more civilized the further north you go. Okay, we're going to have a chat.
We're going to have a brief chat here. You are very close to Canada, though. How many Canadians are here? All grouped up, fenced up in that area.
I know. Look, could we just have a conversation for a while? Because, are you Canadian? No, that doesn't qualify you. I only sit in authentic Canadians' laps. But that's strictly between us, okay? I'm sorry.
Okay, I want to pander to our guests, but get some feedback from the audience. I mean, one thing about this guy is he is ageless. And I know when you see him on TV or in the films, you might think that it's done with smoke and mirrors. But seriously, being up close to you, Star Trek: The Next Generation, 20... Yeah, oh, kiss my ass. Good Lord.
This is as far as it goes.
No, I mean, that is...
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It is amazing. You do not look any different than you did 25 years ago when you...
Something happened. I don't know what it is. I often think that my parents lied to me, that actually I was born 20 years later than I was, but I can remember the Second World War. Oh, yes.
It gets quiet in the room. Oh, no,
Oh,
not
yeah.
that one.
They're saying, hey,
That was the big one.
Second World War? Was that like the Vietnam War? Or was it, no. I don't know. Was it the Suez Crisis he's talking about? No, in 1944, my eldest brother, who was in the Royal Air Force, naturally much older than me, although maybe that's the secret to why I look the way I do, we had to go into my mother's sister's cellar because it was deep and very solid, because there were air raid warnings. And just before we went into my Auntie Annie's house, my brother Jeffrey, who was in his RAF uniform, turned around. This is actually my earliest memory, and he said, "Patrick, look." And he pointed up into the night sky, and I saw the flame of a V-2 rocket going overhead. Wow. Yeah. Wow. And that's why I got into Star Trek, because I'm really sorry.
That's the nice thing about having you here at Comic-Con, is because if we bumped into you on the street, we would have to make awkward conversation about everything but Star Trek and avoid the elephant in the room. But here, I mean, you can't really, not answer questions about Star Trek.
I can't. The only thing that I do while I'm here, and I do apologize if I offended anyone, I pretend that I don't know who all those other guys are. There's this famous photograph of all of us, black and white photograph, and we're all lined up, and I'm on the right-hand side at the front. And I love to tell people that they weren't there when that photograph was taken. I was photoshopped into the photograph. And Gates's hand, which is like this, was actually resting on nothing. It was just up in the air.
One of my most vivid memories of Star Trek: The Next Generation when it first came on the air was, and I think it might have still been when they were running promos for the series coming back, the fact that the captain of the USS Enterprise was going to be a bald man. And it was a touchy, it was an inspiring moment for me, because as you know, as you can see, I was struggling with that issue myself. And I remember at that time saying, no, what they're going to do is they're going to plant this guy as the captain and then kill him off, and then Riker, the full-headed hair guy, will step in and assume the throne.
That is a very original and I think beautiful idea.
You were a trailblazer in that regard.
Yeah. I mean, frankly, I thought they were out of their minds. They employed a middle-aged British Shakespearean hairless actor to step well, I didn't step into the shoes because Bill Shatner is still wearing those shoes very successfully. But to at least sit in the chair of, as the man who followed Bill onto the Enterprise, and it made no sense to
Did
me.
you just slaughter the audition?
Well, I'll tell you about the audition. I mean, my final, because I actually went through a process, an interview audition process, I think 4 or 5 visits to Paramount, 3 of which meant flying from London to Los Angeles to do this. But the last one was my audition for the studio. You know how this thing works. I think by then they'd decided who they wanted as captain, even though there were 2 of us. And I promise you, I give you my word, although I thought I knew for years who the other actor was, I was proved to be wrong. And I still don't know who the second actor was. And I would love to meet him.
Who did you think it was?
I can't really tell you who I thought it was, because that wouldn't be fair. But so I went back, and here's what happened. The pilot episode was to be directed by a brilliant television director called Corey Allen, who has left us far, far too early. And Corey directed a number of episodes as well. The Sunday evening before I was due to go in and read for the studio, I got a phone call from Corey Allen, and he said, look, if you can, why don't you come in a little earlier tomorrow? My audition was at 9 a.m., as if that wasn't early enough on a Monday morning. Can you do that? I said, I can come in any time. And he said, all right, come in at 8 o'clock, and don't go to the Star Trek offices. Instead, ask for my office. So I did, and I went to his office, and Corey rehearsed me. He read with me the scenes that we were going to read, and he said, when we go into the audition, the casting director is going to be there, and she will expect to read with you, and I'm going to say, if you don't mind, I'd like to read with Patrick. So it may seem a little unfair, but that's the world, isn't it? I mean, who said it was going to be fair?
The whole system's rigged. Oh my God.
It was rigged. No, it wasn't rigged, because I still had to do the best I could. So I read for Corey, and it is not well known, I think, that I read wearing a hairpiece.
No.
Yes.
By your own choice or
No.
their direction?
I'd been in LA for about a week, and Tuesday or Wednesday, I got a call from my agent saying, the studio would love, if it's possible to do this, they'd like you to, do you have a hairpiece or a toupee or anything like that? And I said, I do, but it's in London. At Paramount's expense, that hairpiece was hand-delivered from West London, where I lived.
What an amazing vacation
Yeah.
that the hairpiece went on.
I went to some distant far corner of LAX, and it was put into my hands. And there are so many things. I'm sorry, I talk too much.
No, you're awesome. Are you kidding me? We could just sit here and listen to your voice.
There are so many stories surrounding this morning, because when I arrived at the front gate of Paramount Pictures, you know, the cars are waiting to go in like this, and it came to my turn, and I told them who I was and why I was there, and they said, okay, you can't park on the lot, you've got to go down, out on the street parking somewhere over there. And I said, but I'm here to audition. They said, it's too bad, you know, get out of here. At which point, a woman got out of the car behind me, and I saw her go up to the security guard, and she was doing a lot of, I mean, basically, it was clear she was saying, don't you know who that is? Don't you know who that is? Well, this was a fabulous woman who became a big part of all of our lives on Next Generation, called Joy Zapata. And you will have seen her name again and again on the credits. Joy was our principal hairdresser on the show. And
Was she transporting the piece? Was that her job?
no, her job was to put on my hairpiece for the audition, which she did. So I auditioned wearing a really nice, it was very expensive bit of work. And then when the audition was over, I went back into this room with Joy, and she took it off. And after a couple of minutes, cleaning me up, there was a knock on the door, and the Paramount executives came in, and they said, "Oh, I just want to say thank you very much, and it's good of you to come in. We really appreciate it." And when they left, Joy said, "You know why they did that? They wanted to see you without the hairpiece." Anyway, they offered me the job.
They did indeed. Good choice. Was Make It So, was that part of the audition? Was that in that first read that you had to do?
I can't think that it was. I read a couple of scenes from Encounter at Farpoint, the pilot episode, and I think one of them was a big scene with Q, with that character, with John Delance's character. And then, actually what happened after that was that I was to discover a long time afterward, well, a few days afterwards, that before I had driven off the lot from the place they'd allowed me to park, actually, they did let me on the lot, they had already called my agent and said, "We want Patrick." My agent, who was not in his office yet because it was still early, called me, this was pre-cell phones, and found that I wasn't at home either. And then he spent about 3 hours trying to find me, because I had a philosophy about auditions, which was, when the audition is over, forget it, erase it, because the chances are you will not be the one chosen. So you simply torture yourself if you worry about, did I get it, did I get it? So I forgot about it, and I went to a coffee shop I knew down Melrose Avenue, and I went past a place where they sold the English papers, and I bought a pile of English newspapers, and I took them to this coffee shop, and I sat there for a couple of hours reading the newspapers, while my agent was frantically trying to find me. And here's what's some of you will have heard this story before, and I'm sorry if you have, and it's tiresome, but he knew that I was staying in the home of an English professor at UCLA. So he called the English department at UCLA. I mean, you know, this is a Hollywood agent, enterprising people. And, yeah, go on. And he spoke to one of the secretaries in the English department and said, "I am trying to reach Patrick Stewart." And she said, "There's nobody of that name works here." And he said, "No, but there is somebody called David Rhodes who works there, and Professor Rhodes is Patrick's landlord this week, and if you could get him, I need to speak with him." So they went along to, no, they said, "We need to know the reason for your call." And my agent said, "Just tell Professor Rhodes that Patrick has got the job. That's all." They did. They took a Post-it note with that written on into David Rhodes' classroom, showed him the Post-it note. He said to the undergraduates, just, work amongst yourselves, read, and he was out of the door. And he talked to my agent and said, "Patrick went for an audition at Paramount this morning." And the agent said, "Yes, I know he did." And I'm trying to find him. And David Rhodes said, I have no idea where he is. And then he remembered that I had said the previous evening, I am going to meet another English professor from UCSB for lunch. And David, who knew this professor, knew that he always stayed in the same hotel in Westwood. So I am driving to Westwood to have lunch with my friend, and I go to this small hotel he was staying in. They ring up the desk, and he says, "Yes, come on up, Patrick." I go to his room, knock on the door. As he lets me in, his phone rings. I swear to you, this is not, actors' tall tales. The phone was ringing by his bed. He went in and he picked it up and he said, "Hello? It's for you," he said.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, it's clear that Jean-Luc Picard was a more enlightened starship captain than Kirk, who would tap.
Those are not my words.
I think we all know that guy would tap any intergalactic skank that was floating around. Not William Shatner, of course.
I only offended Canadians just now. You have offended half the population of the United States.
Of the universe, for God's sake.
The universe, you might say. Yeah.
I'm curious if that character would have played out the same way had someone else been cast in that role. Did they specifically, did it drift in that direction because of your proclivity? You know, you have this Shakespearean gait, this Shakespearean bent. And I mean, I know you can't predict what it would have been like had you not gotten it, but did you get a sense that they were tailoring the character specifically to you?
I did not. Certainly not so far as the pilot episode was concerned or early episodes that season. I would say that there was probably no direct reference to the actor who was playing the role until they began to insert these little Shakespeare fragments, you know, when Picard told Data, if you really want to understand humanity, you couldn't do better than read Shakespeare. And that's how all that stuff began.
Very interesting. So I can't see. Do we have people lined up at the microphones? No. First. Don't line up now. In case you can't see, there are a few people lined up. What? All right, let's.
They're actually fighting. I saw punches being thrown just then.
Yeah, and I actually, she threw a couple, so let's go with her first.
Yeah, okay.
She's my friend. It's okay. She gets it all the time.
All right.
I'm a huge. You're picking on me again. First I offer for you to sit on my lap, and now I get this. No, never mind.
Oh, it's you. Yeah.
By the way, just some quick ground rules for the questions here. You can't ask him to give you a hug. You can't offer to give him anything. You could offer to give something to the person standing there manning the microphone. Okay, that's not necessarily for you, for the other people in line. So, all right, go ahead.
So my question is, what was it like working with co-star Sting on Dune?
Okay. Dune was an accident. It should not have happened to me. No, I'm serious. This is too long a story to tell here, but the fact is David Lynch thought he had cast someone else. No, that's quite true. But it's too long a story to tell. But it is absolutely the truth. So all of that happened in a kind of daze. On Friday morning, I was filming in the Moselle Valley in Germany, and on Saturday night, I was having a costume fitting for a still suit in Mexico City. That's how quickly it happened.
That is awesome.
And I was the wrong actor. But by then, it was too late. It was fabulous. Some great actors in that movie, some of whom have left us, and that's incredibly sad. Ken McMillan in particular, who was a wonderful guy. I got to go out to dinner once a week with Max von Sydow, who was one of my heroes. And I used to sit across the table from him, and you know, we would eat tacos, and I would think, this is Max von Sydow across the table from him. Kyle MacLachlan has become a lifelong friend and buddy, as has Everett McGill, who was also in that movie. The three of us hung out together a lot.
She wants to know about Sting.
I know.
Sting.
I'm coming to Sting. So, music, at least popular music, has never played a big part in my life, until the last few years, for a very good reason. I had never heard of Sting. I mean, that's how isolated I was from the music world. But I was aware that there was, because I'd been there a couple of weeks before Sting arrived, and when he arrived, there was this kind of frisson everywhere. You know, the whole of Mexico City was abuzz that Sting was coming. And so I heard he was a musician. That's all I knew.
That's all you knew.
And so the second or third day, we're just hanging out on the set, and him and me, and I say, "So you're a musician?" And he said, "Yep." And I said, "What do you play?" And I swear, I crossed my heart. This is absolutely and he said, "Bass." And I said, "You know, I've often wondered, what is it like carrying that huge thing around with everywhere you go?" And
All right.
Thank you
I
so
mean,
much.
God bless him. Sting said, "No, bass guitar. That's what I play." And I said, great. That's fantastic. Beautiful instrument. And you're like, "Are you a solo artist?" And he said, No, I'm in a band." And I said, "Oh, what kind of band?" He said, "The Police." Folks, I said, "You play in a police band?"
Oh. It's good you took that guy down a notch. All right,
Thank
your
you.
question here, sir.
So when I was 10 years old, I remember seeing the movie Excalibur, which maybe is bad parenting right there, but I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about what it was like to shoot that film. And as a follow-up for my wife, is Hugh Jackman really that charming in person?
Well, let's get the second part of the question out of the way immediately. Yes, and more so. Sweet-natured, lovely, funny, everyday, and fabulous. And I will be nose to nose with him, face to face, in about 6 weeks' time. Very, very exciting. I can't believe that it has come about. You know, Sir Ian and McKellen and I, we used to say, "Do you think they'll ever do another one with us?" No, they won't. They've got James McAvoy now. And, why would they need us, you know? They got big, handsome guy Michael there. They weren't going to need us anymore. And here we are, about to start another movie. Some of the old team. I, of course, cannot tell you who they are.
All right, and then the first part of the question was...
Talk about Excalibur.
Excalibur, the first big movie I ever was in, I only had a small role. A lot of the other actors were friends of mine, because John Boorman cast almost essentially stage actors, which is rare in the movie business. But I had known Helen Mirren, I had known come on, Patrick, you can do this. No, I can't do it. It's no good, I can't do it. You know, one of the charming things was the Irish actors who were in that movie, playing really kind of small supporting roles, like Liam Neeson. It was a great experience, and along with Dune, the most uncomfortable film I've ever been in. It's hard to say whether the still suits or the armor were more uncomfortable.
Wait, as a stage actor playing in movies and television, what's the most significant adjustment you have to make? Is it more boring to be in films and television? It just takes longer and the process is slower? Is that?
It's rarely boring. I don't bore easily. I mean, I bore you easily. I I don't bore myself easily because I am never bored. I never, ever, ever bored. So
just in the craft, in the way you perform.
some of the green screen, blue screen stuff, yes. You are detached from the drama. Essentially, you hit your marks. You look over here. You look over there. You know, and that can be. You are a tool of the filmmaker rather than a creative person. That's what it feels like.
Very good. All right. Let's see your question.
What was your favorite Star Trek movie to film and why?
First Contact. And largely because it was directed by my pal, Jonathan Frakes, who did a brilliant, brilliant job of that movie. And we had so much fun on doing it. So much fun. And Alice Krieger and all the guys, it was terrific. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice. And over here?
Hi, I love you as everything you've ever done, but one quick question.
Thank you. Oh, I also want to say, because I've known Kieran Hines and Gabriel Byrne were also in Excalibur. They were a kind of trio, and I should have mentioned that because they're big, tough guys, and I don't fancy getting one stuck on the nose from one of them.
Is it really that good to be the king?
You all heard the question. Is it good to be the king? I have found myself playing leadership roles from pretty early on in my career. And I like to put it down to the fact, well, I don't know why that happened to me, but my father was a great leader, and in the last year, I have actually found out so much more about him as a leader. He's been dead for many, many years. I found out more about the nature and quality of his personal leadership than I had ever known before. And I wish so much I had known it, because I would have liked to have talked to him about it, but he never talked about it, so I didn't know. But my father is in every role I play. Sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a kind of scary way. But he's there, and it was many years, and thanks to very expensive therapy, that I came to understand that I had been channeling my father for so long. And it didn't really come home to me until I was playing a great role in a Shakespeare play, and I began in a military uniform, began the play, and the first preview, I'm in my uniform ready to go on, and my dresser hands me an AK-47, which I had under my arm, and I had a mustache, which my father had, and I looked in the mirror, and my father looked right back at me. And it was then that I realized, oh, well, you've been there all the time, you know. So, is it good to be the king? The thing about leadership, people make you a leader. It's how people behave to you, as if you are a leader. If people go, oh yeah, shut up, you know, and walk away when you're the king, you wouldn't be the king. So a lot of it is to do with what surrounds you as the king. But I also like leading a theater company. That's something I've come to enjoy. I like to, not because I'm saying being the star, not at all, but I like to be responsible, like my father was, as I've discovered, for a group of other individuals, you know, in a kind of almost pastoral way to do that. I like that part of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your question.
Yes, I'm also in the theater. I work backstage, and I'm wondering what your favorite theater pieces that you've performed or would like to be in.
That is an impossibly hard question to answer, because it has been my good fortune to have been in so many wonderful plays with wonderful actors and directors in great theaters. Very often I will say it's the one that I'm doing right now. Well, I'm not doing a play right now, but here is the moment for my pitch. Sir Ian McKellen and myself are going to be appearing on Broadway with 2 American actors whom I cannot yet name. They're cast, but we haven't yet released their names to the press, in 2 plays. Waiting for Godot by Sam Beckett, and Harold Pinter's great masterpiece, No Man's Land. Now, there are 4 actors in each play, and the 4 of us will play those 4 roles. We're going to be doing these 2 plays in repertoire like this, and at least 1 day a week, if you choose to, you can see both plays on the same day. And that will open on Broadway in a theater yet unnamed sometime in mid-October. But we'll be a little closer to Seattle. I knew we were in Seattle, by the way. That was just... I had this joke about Seattle. I thought you said something about cattle. But I decided not to go there. Smart. Yeah, smart.
Good call.
Really smart. You see, I'm trying to learn to be funny. Being funny, now, I know, I was never funny, really. The Star Trek people taught me about sense of humor. I thought you had to be serious all the time. They taught me you can have fun and do good work at the same time. In fact, actually, the chances are you do better work if you're having fun. But I am now trying to explore comedy, which I've never had a chance to do, and having things like Family Guy, American Dad, extras to do. You know, all this, and I did some work with Second City in Chicago recently, and I am getting so much satisfaction out of doing comedy. And so I'm sorry if I gave offense, but I wanted to try out some humor at the beginning of the thing, because everybody expects me to be, yes, 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 the way Michael Dorn impersonates me. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, over here.
My first exposure to you was I, Claudius, PBS series, which helped inspire my love for history, which is something else. But how was that transition from going from that British actor, you know, PBS, or not PBS, but Shakespearean to Hollywood, and how was that transition for you?
It was very challenging. It was the biggest transition that I've ever made in my career. I had never done a drama series, so I'd never worked at the level of intensity that hour-long drama series work. Although I had visited Los Angeles as a stage actor several times, I was unfamiliar with the world of Hollywood. And
when you say level of intensity, do you mean as the character or just as an actor, like conjuring up, or just the hours that you were working? Or?
Largely the hours, and because of the nature of the role I played, that I had quite a lot to do, and which meant every day a lot of lines to learn. Yeah, I wasn't used to working a basic 12-hour day in the theater. We work a 8, 10-hour day, and I lived like a hermit for the first 12 months that I was, for the first series, because I was so frightened of not being on top of the work that I didn't go out, didn't go anywhere. Weekends I stayed at home and I prepared the next week's work because I was so nervous about being unprepared always. But I quickly, one of the great things was that we were at Paramount Pictures. Do you know the Paramount Studios?
I only know that entry that you described before, where they tell you to park somewhere else.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was, in a way, the most perfect studio for me to work in, because it is perhaps the most historic studio. There are new buildings, but original Paramount is there. You know, they can point you, they say that corner of the lot, that used to be RKO, and that used to be United Artists. And Orson Welles worked on that soundstage, and all of the Fred Astaire movies were made on 16, 17, and 18. 16 was what we call Planet Hell. It was where they created all the alien landscapes. And when I discovered that the set that had the bridge on it, and 10 Forward, was the set, the sound stage on which the entire movie Rear Window was filmed with James Stewart. I mean, I was just in shock about all of this. So I love the history and the sense of tradition that Paramount as a studio had. And so that made the transition a little smoother. But I've got to finish something I was saying earlier. Before we open these two plays, Ian and myself and these as yet unnamed actors, brilliant actors, we are going to do a season at Berkeley Rep in Northern California. And it's not far away, is it? No. And that will be, let me see, August, September. So if you can get yourselves down to Northern California, come and see us.
Very nice. Thanks for the invite. Yes.
Hello, Patrick.
Hi.
So my father and I always struggled at our relationship, and he was a brilliant physicist, but a difficult man to relate to. And Next Generation was one thing we always could share in a really positive way. So thank you for that, first of all. One episode that we particularly had a bonding moment in our lives together was a fan favorite, The Inner Light. And so I've always wondered, first, whether that episode meant half as much to you as it did to your fan base. And then also, you always get the question, people always get the questions whether they've kept anything from the sets. And I've always kind of pictured you keeping that flute. So I kind of was curious to know if you had it.
Well, my favorite episode in the 178 was Inner Light. And it was a brilliant script. I may be wrong in this, but I've always understood that it was the only non-commissioned script that ever got produced. You know, people would send in scripts all the time. I still get them. People still send me Star Trek scripts. And Inner Light was a spec script. And the studio read it, the producers read it and said, this is brilliant. And it was, as far as I understand it, it was filmed pretty much as it landed in the writer's building. It was a wonderful story. And for me, it gave me a chance to be off the ship, out of my spacesuit, and living another life. And a parent. And it also was doubly charming in that the role of my son was played by my son. Wow. And that was the first time we ever worked together. And we have worked together since then, and hopefully we will again. By the way, if any of you are coming down to, I nearly said Oklahoma, but actually, I'm not going to Oklahoma. I'm going to, what is it in Florida that begins with O?
Orlando?
Thank you.
That's almost worse than not knowing Sting's name.
I know. Now I have alienated the whole of Florida as well. At least the
that's
city.
Totally fine to do that.
At least
we
the
do
city of
too.
Orlando. My son will be there with me at that convention in Orlando.
I'm curious. You know, a lot of actors who have played these pivotal roles feel that they're somewhat of a curse because you get typecast and you can never break out. You are always Jean-Luc Picard to us. Did you have an agent that was at all concerned about that? Were you concerned about that when you first were considering taking the role?
I was very concerned about it. I was so naive. I knew so little. It wasn't until my agent and I on the Tuesday lunchtime were discussing the deal that he happened to say, and of course, you know, that there will be a, whatever, 5% increase every year for the 6 years. And I said, what do you mean 6 years? And he said, well, that's, if you sign for a pilot for a first season, you're signing for the 6 years. And I said, well, no, in that case, then forget it. I have things to do. No, seriously. I mean, there's a play I want to do next year. It's so naive. This is, I've told this so many times, you've all heard it before, but I did my own research. I did know one or two people in Hollywood. I knew a couple of writers, I knew a director, a couple of actors, and without exception, they all said to me, sign the contract, because you'll be lucky to make it through the first season. You cannot revive an iconic series. They all said this. It is doomed to fail. So sign the contract. I mean, one of them actually...
That's what made the decision easy, was that everyone was suggesting it might fail.
Yeah,
Or
and
would fail.
One of them said to me, look, come to LA for a few months, make some money for the first time in your life, right? Get a suntan, go home. Huh.
Unfortunately, we only have time for 2 more questions, so I'm sorry, the people that have been waiting in line. Up front here, yeah.
I saw your Claudius in the Hamlet opposite David Tennant in London as a student. I was just wondering how you liked playing the darker Shakespearean characters, the sort of villain of the piece, if he can be interpreted as that.
I enjoy those very, very much. Claudius is a fascinating character. Right before I started rehearsing Claudius, I've been playing Macbeth for a year, and that was a wonderful experience too. These are, I think most actors would agree, bad guys are the most interesting on the whole. Yeah, that's what I would say. I'm so glad. Did you like the Tennant Hamlet?
I loved it.
Wasn't he? Yeah, he was wonderful, wasn't he?
Yeah.
It's fabulous.
Yeah,
And
it
a sweetheart.
Eerie.
Sweetheart guy. By the way, something I want to say is I'm here in Canada. I know where I am. I'm in Seattle. And I've only had a few hours off since I've been here. Friday afternoon when I arrived, we went to the Seattle Art Museum. And there is at the moment a brand new exhibition that's just opened from Kenwood House in London. Isn't it a disgrace that I have to come to Seattle in order to see an exhibition that has been in London all my life? Anyway, it's a fabulous exhibition. And I didn't have a chance to tour the rest of the museum, but it looked really great. This exhibition is fabulous. So if you haven't been to the SAM, do go, because it's a great feature of Seattle.
They could do worse than an endorsement like that, I suppose. Yes, your question.
I'm the last question?
I think so, yes.
Okay, well, to start
Make it a
off,
good one.
Yeah, make this one count.
No pressure, but oh boy, this had better be good.
Okay.
If you want to say, how do you learn your lines or anything like that,
no,
forget it.
absolutely not. Actually, I hope I've got one the audience will appreciate. First off, I'd like to say thank you. You have been a big part of my life growing up. Star Trek was. I think that's the case for a lot of people in this room. Something I share with my family, and you were actually an actor who showed up a lot in my Shakespeare class too.
That's good.
Taught at Seattle U, go Redhawks. My question comes in 2 parts. I know this is a big con. This year's been big for Emerald City, and so there are probably a lot of people here who have never been before. But for those of us who have been going for a few years back, we got to hear Brent Spiner's impression of you. My question in 2 parts. 1, what's your opinion of it? And 2, can you do him?
Yeah. Okay, here's the... I'm sorry, what was his name again?
I believe
Bert Spooner. Yeah.
that close enough.
Never heard of him.
Close enough.
Yeah. Brent's is good. I actually think Michael Dorn's is better.
Oh, really?
Jonathan's is ridiculous.
Very true.
Even LeVar does a very passable Patrick Stewart. No, I don't do impersonations. I really, really admire those. I mean, Anthony Hopkins, for instance, is a brilliant impersonator, not something that is generally well known. Unless you go to see Hitchcock and he's doing an impersonation of Hitchcock, a performance of Hitchcock. What was the question? So good.
Can you do him?
I think you answered
Can I do
it.
him? No, I can't do him. I don't do impersonations.
Okay.
How do we rate that question on a scale of 1 to 10?
It's all right.
No, thank you. No, sit down. Why should I let you ask another question? We have just made a big fuss of this young woman here by making, and now you can.
Because I'm going to ask you something that I hope everyone will appreciate.
What do you think? Are we going to give
All
it?
right, one more. Squeeze it in. Make it fast.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say that
No first of alls.
my love of bald-headed men started with you playing Jean-Luc Picard. And you by far are still the sexiest bald-headed man ever.
That is true. That is true. You.
Don't you think so? Come on. And then, have you ever been tired of saying, make it so? And, okay, answer that first.
Except for a charming couple who were at my table today, I have not actually said those 3 words since 1997, when I introduced the then leader of the British Labour Party, Tony Blair, at a political rally, and introduced him as the next Prime Minister of England, which I was exactly correct in, and I said, Mr. Blair, those words.
Could you say 4 words and say, Michelle, make it so? Just 4 words.
No. Are you Michelle?
I am.
No, I'm sorry, Michelle, I can't do that.
But I even named my fish after you. His name was the Picard. The Picard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. You've already given us a preview of kind of what you're involved in, and it seems like so much makes a normal person's head explode. But what are you in right now? So there's the theater that you mentioned down in Berkeley.
Right now, I have 2 movies waiting for release. One, an Israeli movie, so it will be a foreign language film. It's in Hebrew, except for my character. I speak English. And we're looking for a release sometime this spring. And a movie that I made in New York in November, December. The Israeli movie is called Hunting Elephants. There's no hunting in the movie, and there are no elephants in the movie. So don't get too excited about that. But there are some fabulous Israeli actors. And the other one was called Match. We filmed this in Brooklyn, in Crown Heights, in November, December. And it's basically a 3-hander, and I had 2 fabulous co-stars, Matthew Lillard and Carla Gugino, who were both sensational in this movie. They're coming out soon, I hope. They're small, independent movies. I'm doing my ongoing American Dad, Family Guy, my other voiceover work. I continue to do things for Refuge, the domestic violence charity. I do a lot of work with Amnesty.
Is that what has you speaking to the United Nations?
Yeah, I hope.
Well, there's a little something about the United Nations.
Yeah, I hope, and I think I should not talk too much about this because it hasn't been fully decided. But there is going to be a campaign led by the United Nations in which men, to begin with, men with a kind of public profile are going to make promises and guarantees about violence against women, which is, you know, not just domestic violence, but across the whole spectrum of horrible situations. So I do these things, and I'm chancellor of a university, and I do some teaching there, and I'm president of Huddersfield Town Football Club, and that's sometimes very hard. But the next piece of work is stepping onto the set of X-Men.
Awesome. Well, with all that, it is really an honor that you would spend a little time with us up here in the Pacific Northwest. Sir Patrick Stewart, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. You're fabulous. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Good job, man.
That was great.
You were fantastic.
Thanks.
See that booty do, man. Addition, subtraction. action, let me see the fractions. I wanna see that booty do math. Won't you subdivide them, multiply and times them. I wanna see that booty do math.